Course correction is a fact of leadership life. It's how you run a business. It's also how you fly a plane. It's also how you drive. It's also how you play golf too, for that matter. It's all over the place, right? It's certainly how you raise kids, that's for sure. Consider this though, an aeroplane, just got off an aeroplane actually halfway around the world, but an aeroplane is quote unquote off course at least 99% of its time in flight. Now that's a worrying thought, right? We'll cover it today, but it's due to weather conditions, turbulence, traffic, and all of that kind of stuff. So the pilot, or autopilot if it's a commercial plane, has to almost constantly reassess and constantly course correct, otherwise disaster is 100% guaranteed. When I was learning how to fly a plane, long time ago, I had quite an amusing flight instructor, and he said, takeoff is always optional, but once you've taken off, landing is compulsory. We're going to talk about that today. Now, leaders need to treat their own path and their own business exactly the same way as a pilot does, right? What does it look like for us? Well, it looks like measure, review, course correct, and then rinse and repeat, and rinse and repeat, and rinse and repeat. And it's a process that all leaders need to get far more familiar with and far more comfortable with. Talk about that today and why. I'm Antonio, and today I'm going to be your leadership coach for the next 30 or 45 minutes. So join me, sit down as we talk about all things course correction, when to make big adjustments in your plan or strategy, why it's necessary, how to stay calm like a pilot, or I was going to say like a golfer, but if you've ever played golf with me, you know that's not true. And this way we can start to finally begin to stop managing and start leading. There are no models to draw today, but in 95% of our episodes, there are. So all previous past models and all future models, they are available as a complimentary digital download. So whilst there's no models today to have a look at, there are dozens and dozens that we have. Go check them out at www.mydailyleadership.com/podcast. Okay, so as I mentioned, a very long time ago, I learned to fly a plane. For those of you that know how to fly a plane, congrats, welcome to the club. For those of you who don't, listen, the principle that I'm going to share with you today is fairly self-evident when you think about it. It's maybe another one of our little aha or insight moments. Imagine that a pilot is preparing to fly from JFK, let's say, to London Heathrow. And let's imagine that that flight is going to take 10 and a half hours. That pilot is obliged, always and every time, to log the flight path, the flight plan, with the FAA, Federal Aviation Authority, right? They have to log the route, where they're intending to go, right? They have to make sure that they understand the weather conditions, and they have to understand all of that, and restricted airspace and all of that kind of stuff. And here's the plane I'm going to be flying, and here's where I'm starting from. Here's the path I'm going to take, and here's where I'm going to land in London Heathrow. Now, here's what doesn't happen. What doesn't happen is the pilot gets on the runway, right? Comes off the apron on the runway, asks air traffic control for permission to leave. Air traffic control give them permission to leave. They, turn on the power, trundle down the runway, take off, turn left or right on a heading and a bearing that will kind of broadly point towards London Heathrow, leave the airspace of JFK, I think I said, and then get to height, point towards London, and in 10 and a half hours, irrespective of anything, land the plane. What are the chances of, in 10 and a half hours after leaving London Heathrow, if all they do is point towards London, 10 and a half hours later, land the plane wherever they are, what are the chances of landing slap bang in the middle of the runway in London Heathrow? Well, the answer is zero. There is zero chance of that happening. Why? Well, because of weather and because of instructions from the ground, right? And traffic, and there's lots and lots and lots of reasons why the pilot doesn't follow exactly the plan that was logged and registered. Think of that like a business plan. Okay, so an organization, probably because something you said, decided to put together a business plan for the year, right? And that plan, broadly, we're starting here and we're going to end here. That's like a flight plan, right? We're starting here, we're going to end here, and we're going to do all of these things in the mid. This is what our plan looks like. This is what Q1 looks like. This is what Q2 looks like. This is what Q3 looks like. And I'm hoping that that's a living, breathing, live document. It should be. Business plans are not to be written, not to be constructed in May, put in a drawer, close the drawer, and 12 months later open the drawer and say, okay guys, how did we do? Did we land at Heathrow? Because the chances are 0 that you landed at Heathrow, if you get my drift, right? If you follow the metaphor. So whilst the pilot is constantly course correcting, constantly, in order to land on the runway in Heathrow, we're the same. We are the same as leaders with business plans. Here's the other thing, and here's the key difference, I think, between a pilot and a leader of an organization. The pilot gets into the plane and takes off knowing 100%, not 99%, knowing 100% that they have to course correct along the way. They know that where the reality meets the plan, and I can't remember who it was that said, it was a very wise military general that says no plan survives first contact with the enemy. Even Mike Tyson, that great philosopher, boxer, Mike Tyson, said it's amazing how quickly a plan goes out the window when you get punched in the face, right? So the fact of the matter is that every pilot, probably every military strategist, right, probably every boxer knows that they're going to have to course correct, and they don't get the least bit grumpy about it. A pilot doesn't sit in the seat, right, in the cockpit, and like be really grumpy because they've got to make changes to the plan. So why do we as leaders, we create a plan, and then at the end of Q1 we're off plan, right, we're off target, we get really grumpy about it, and then we make everybody else grumpy about it. Why don't we just accept that course correction is 100% guaranteed? It's a fact of life. So let's change our attitude to that, right? That we know we are going to have to course correct, and it's not something that should make us grumpy. What is important is to course correct quickly and with purpose, but also leave enough room to know that we're going to have to course correct again. If you've ever played golf, I certainly have, very poorly, I know that when I start the game, and I'm just about to hit my first drive off the first hole, right? I know that when I drive, my accuracy is going to be fairly low, right? So if you've ever played golf with me, you'll know what I'm talking about. But that big, fast drive, that drive off the pin, your accuracy is low, right? And if you play with me, it could go anywhere. And I work hard at trying not to be grumpy about it, the chances of it might going anywhere, but it could go anywhere. And because we're moving fast, that ball's moving fast. Any 1 degree off course, and it's going to be a long way off by the time it lands. Okay, cool. And then I'm going to hit another ball, not quite as far, not quite as fast, a little bit more accurately. And then my next ball, not quite as far, not quite as fast, with more accuracy. So my speed, my intentionality comes down as my accuracy goes up. Same with business plans, right? Q1, Q2, Q3, you get the idea. Week 1, week 2, week 3, you get the idea. Until eventually I'm putting hopefully short distance, slight alterations. It's like the pilot. When the pilot's coming towards Heathrow, right, the runway's in front of him, he's making lots of very fine adjustments until he's on the ground. But when he's somewhere over Greenland, he's making big adjustments, either in height, in attitude, in altitude, right, direction. You get the idea. So as a business plan is created, right, we know, or we should do, that we're going to have to make some big corrections and ultimately some very fine corrections. And we know that we are going to have to course correct, and that's okay. Certainly as we're flying planes, we know that. As we're playing golf, we know that. As we're raising kids, we know that, right? And it's the same for business. So get the right attitude that we're going to make a plan and we're going to have to course correct. And whilst we're on the topic, here's the other thing. If that's true, and it is, then let's not get too granular, too stuck in the details of what the plan looks like at the beginning. Right? We don't have to wait until we have an absolutely perfect plan before we start the year. Why? Because there is no such thing as an absolute perfect plan. We have to have a broad directional plan, right? Like the pilot, like the golfer. We have to generally know what we're trying to achieve, right? Strategically what we're trying to do, like the pilot, but then the tactics change over time as circumstances change. Now, if I see a business plan and Q4 has as much detail and precision as Q1 before the year starts, I already know that everybody's going to be set up for disappointment, right? Q1 should have enormous accuracy as you're taking off from the runway and getting out of the airport. You should know that with detail, right? But as time moves on, more is revealed, right? And so I don't have much accuracy today of what Q4 would look like, right? Neither does the pilot know, as he's taking off from JFK, all of the corrections he's going to have to do by the time he gets to Heathrow, right? So our plan should be very accurate and then lose its accuracy over time, but be prepared to add in the detail as we're going through the year. I'm sure you catch my drift and catch the metaphor. So let's just take a quick break for a second, talk about something else, and then we'll come back to that. Quick pause for some housekeeping, I think. For those of you joining us for the first time, welcome. I'm Antonio Garrido. I'm the founder and president of My Daily Leadership. As a serial entrepreneur and a business leader, just like you, and an author of 3 books, about to be 4, I've had the opportunity to work with everyone from emerging startups all the way through to Fortune 60 mega companies, right? Helping them create better leaders and to grow sustainably. When we first launched this podcast, our goal was simple and clear, right? We wanted to deliver real value and high ROI to super busy leaders just like you. We understand that you're constantly juggling a lot, which is why we pack each episode, we hope, with practical advice and practical tools that you can implement and use immediately. Sometimes it's just a belief, sometimes it's an attitude. But anyway, if you found anything useful so far, please take a moment to like, subscribe, or follow us on YouTube or whatever your favorite podcast platform might be. Look, it's important, please. Your support really does help us reach more leaders just like you who are as committed to growth just as you are. So if you'll be a poppet, please do that now. And if you're listening on YouTube, genuinely, we'd love to hear from you. Do share your biggest leadership challenge right now in the comment, and we'll do one of 2 things. We'll either point you to an episode that tackles that thing, or we will genuinely create a special one just for you. We'll share it with others, but your challenges are probably theirs also. And we do genuinely read every comment and we respond to everyone too. So what have you got to lose? Okay, so before we jump back in, don't forget that all of the models that we've done and will do are available for free, and you can't say fairer than free, on our website. Our amazing podcast producers take the drawings that I do, which are fairly dreadful, and they make them into beautiful downloadable models that you can print and stick on your wall and remind yourself about every day. So just head to www.mydailyleadership.com/podcast. Okay, so let's get back to it, shall we? Welcome back. We talk about this in the book. It's a rather splendid book here. Page 380 is called How to Land a Plane, right? Not the book, the chapter, right? How to Land a Plane. It talks about everything that we've talked about so far. But here's another thing I'd like you to think about. There are, when you're a pilot, when you can think of, if you kind of imagine a cockpit of a 747, you've probably seen images of them. There are, I don't know, 1 million, it's probably an exaggeration, 1,000 maybe, switches and gauges. And, I'm talking like a full jumbo jet, right? Or, the new A380, for example. I haven't seen an image of the cockpit of an A380, but I'm imagining there are endless dials and switches, right? Well, there certainly are in a 747 at any rate. But anyway, and you could easily get fairly overwhelmed by the number of bells and knobs and switches and all of that kind of stuff. But you know what? Really, there's only a few key things to think about. Page 385, we've got our windshield. What can we see around us? As I'm moving through these things, think about, okay, what's that thing as it relates to my business plan? Then there's a compass, our heading indicator. Are we moving in the right direction? Altimeter, what's our height? Our altimeter is how far from danger are we? Airspeed indicator, how fast are we going? Think about what that might look like in terms of your business plan. Artificial horizon, where am I currently oriented relative to normal? Vertical speed indicator, how high up and down we're going, and our turn coordinator. Right, so if you're a pilot, there's really only 7 things the key 7 things that we need to pay attention to. If we can get those 7 things nailed, all of the other stuff is kind of noise. What am I talking about as far as business plans are concerned? I'm talking about KPIs, the few most important. Make sure before you start your year, what are my few most important KPIs? What things do I have to pay attention to so that we can all look at and say, guys, are we on course? Are we off course? Expect to be off course. That's fine. I'm not saying 99% of the time, but a good percentage of the time, and recognize that you are going to have to course correct and not get grumpy about it, not make everybody else grumpy about it. The sooner you figure that out, where you're off course, the better for everybody. To change metaphors back to a nautical rather than an aeronautical metaphor, what's better? A little rudder applied a long way from the rocks, or a lot of rudder right on top? Don't wait until Q4 to try and course correct where you're miles off course, right? Course correct constantly. Lots and lots of fine adjustments. Keep your KPIs in mind. That's it for today. I hope that makes sense. Remember, takeoff is optional. Landing is compulsory. Well, my friend, that's all for today. But before the wrap up, we would love to hear your takeaways. What's one thing you plan to do differently as a result of this episode? It could be a different way of thinking. That's good enough. It could be a specific action. It could be something that you're going to talk to somebody else about, right? Maybe your coach. Maybe you're going to get a coach. Maybe we can be your coach. Okay, but look, a big thank you for being here today. As always, I do hope this episode offered you something of value, even if it's just one tool, one tip, or one thought, one belief that improves your leadership ability just by 1%. Remember, there's immense power in marginal gains over time. So, just before I go, be sure to like, follow, and subscribe so you don't miss out on future episodes just like this one. Now, if you're interested, in the next episode, we're going to be talking about hiring, right? The cost of a bad hire. I don't need to tell you, but how do we make sure that as a C player leaves, we only replace them with A players? Now, if your A players are leaving, and you're bringing in C players, or your C players are staying, that's a whole other problem for a whole other episode, right? Which we will get into. The rising tide raises all boats and all of that good stuff, and that's what we're going to explore. A players, how do you identify them? What do they look like? How do you find them? How do you attract them? How do you make sure that they are what they say they are? And all of that good stuff. So tune in, why not? Okay, so for today, that's it. I'm Antonio Garrido from My Daily Leadership. Thanks for tuning in. Until next time, by wisdom and effort, have a great day.